A crimson twilight stretched across the Manhattan skyline, casting long shadows on the city's steel and glass bones. On the rooftop of the Baxter building, the wind howled like a distant beast, cold and fierce. But it wasn't the wind that made Johnny Storm uneasy. It was the silence. An unnatural stillness had crept into the air. Johnny Storm, better known to the world as the Human Torch, hovered in mid-air, his body wreathed in a halo of golden flame. His eyes scanned the skyline below, narrowed in concentration. Something or someone was playing with the city's climate, and it wasn't climate change. He descended slowly, landing in a crouch as his flames dimmed. At the rooftop's edge, thin rime began to crawl up the guardrails, curling like frozen vines. Johnny tapped his communicator. "Reed, I'm telling you, this isn't just another cold front. Something's wrong. This feels mutant." Before Reed Richards could respond, a piercing crack echoed from below. In an instant, a spire of ice erupted from the pavement several blocks away, lancing skyward and bursting into a flurry of crystals that glittered like diamonds in the fading sun. Johnny's jaw tightened. He recognized the signature, Bobby Drake, Iceman. Bobby stood alone in a snow-covered field in upstate New York. Not a natural snowfield. This one was his creation. Around him, a perfect sphere of winter stretched for miles, blanketing the forest in a deathly calm. His ice form shimmered under the midday sun, a translucent silhouette of a man with eyes like glacier cores. But it wasn't peace he was after. He was training, no, pushing himself. Since Emma Frost had helped him unlock his full potential, Bobby had begun to feel the pressure that came with being classified an Omega-level mutant. He could manipulate moisture in the air, freeze oceans, craft sentient ice constructs, and regenerate from vapor. But something still held him back, something emotional. "I'm not just the funny guy on the X-Men anymore," he muttered to himself. "I'm tired of pretending I don't belong at the top." And then the message came. A mutant research station in Antarctica, devoted to climate science and mutant energy readings, had gone silent. The last transmission showed a blizzard engulfing the entire base, followed by footage of a solar flare-like explosion. Bobby knew instantly what this meant. Fire. The kind only Johnny Storm could produce. When they finally met on neutral ground, a frost-encased corner of Times Square where snow had begun to fall in July, there were no smiles, just history. Johnny floated above the ground, his body pulsing with fiery energy, casting shadows like a sun god. "Bobby!" he called down, voice sharp. "This ends now. You're freezing parts of the grid, shutting down water lines, and you almost buried the Bronx in a glacier. What are you doing?" Iceman's eyes narrowed. "I'm protecting the Earth. Mutants are evolving beyond playing second fiddle to the Avengers. We're not sidekicks, Johnny. I'm rewriting the climate, fixing what mankind broke. This city will be the first sanctuary. No war, no overheating, no droughts, just balance." Johnny's fire flared higher, melting the snow that dared settle near his boots. "You don't get to decide that. You don't get to freeze 8 million lives into your utopia. And you don't get to scorch the planet every time you throw a tantrum," Bobby replied, voice as sharp as icicles. "You're unstable. You nearly cracked the polar shield during that stunt in the Antarctic." That was it. The tension between them, once teammates, now elemental opposites, snapped like a brittle branch. Iceman raised his arms, summoning towering constructs of ice, jagged wolves, coiled serpents, and a colossal frost knight that stood taller than any skyscraper nearby. The air crackled as moisture condensed instantly, a miniature snowstorm forming at his command. Johnny responded in kind, with a scream of "Flame on!" His body ignited in a burst of solar energy. The snow around him hissed into steam, his heat waves distorting the air. Flaming birds took flight from his back, phoenix-shaped manifestations of his will. The skies turned orange. Heat waves pulsed through the city like ripples of thunder. Across the city, cameras tilted, news drones hovered like flies. Civilians stared from safe houses as their former heroes, once comrades in arms, prepared for a battle not seen since the days of Hulk versus Thor. The X-Men were watching, so were the Fantastic Four. But no one moved. They knew this wasn't just a fight. It was a reckoning, a clash of temperature, of will, of ideology. One fought for balance and control through winter's grip. The other for freedom and fury, driven by fire. The ground began to tremble. Fire and ice advanced on each other, cracking asphalt and glass, creating a surreal storm where snowflakes melted mid-air before refreezing into razors. Iceman stepped forward, expression unreadable. "You ready to burn, Johnny?" Torch hovered above, flames blazing like a second sun. "Hope you're ready to melt." The moment their powers collided, the city held its breath. The moment fire met frost, reality bent. The first clash sent a shockwave across Times Square. Flame collided with ice like ancient gods, warring over the soul of the earth. Cars lifted off the ground, glass windows imploded from pressure alone, and the sky turned into a swirling vortex of smoke, snow, and steam. Iceman hurled twin javelins of jagged ice with thunderous force. They whistled through the air, glinting like frozen lightning, only to melt inches from Johnny Storm's fiery form. In response, the Human Torch screamed skyward, trailing a comet blaze that ignited clouds. He spiraled back down, unleashing a torrent of fireballs the size of SUVs. They struck the pavement, erupting like mini volcanoes. Bobby barely had time to react. He dove to the side, reforming mid-air into a massive wolf-shaped ice beast. It bounded over the flaming debris and lunged for Johnny, only to be met with a flaming uppercut that shattered its head. But Bobby wasn't inside it. From behind, the real Iceman erupted out of a nearby puddle, his body forming instantly from vapor. He grabbed Johnny by the ankle mid-flight and froze the flames off him, plunging his opponent into a spiraling freefall. Johnny crashed into a frozen taxi, skidding across the ice, but he wasn't down. "Nice trick," Johnny snarled, igniting again in a blinding supernova burst that vaporized the car. "But I've been burning longer than you've been cooling off." He blasted forward like a solar torpedo, slamming into Bobby's chest with enough force to crack a glacier. The heat was unimaginable, so intense that parts of Bobby's ice form liquefied on impact. But Bobby didn't fall. Instead, he grinned. He split himself in two, the fire phasing through an illusionary shell while the real Iceman reformed behind Johnny. His hand gripped Johnny's shoulder and froze his flames at the core. Johnny screamed in agony as the intense cold wormed into his atoms, slowing his heat signature, dulling the flame from within. But he wasn't done yet. "You wanted fire?" Johnny roared, his eyes glowing like dying suns. "Here's a supernova!" With a mighty surge, he pushed past the freezing effect and detonated into a contained burst of nuclear-level heat, lighting up the entire skyline. Even the moon blinked behind the shockwave. The blast vaporized 5 square blocks of ice in all directions. Iceman was blown into the side of a skyscraper, crashing through steel and concrete. The building trembled. Snow turned to steam. Water pooled in the crater below. For several moments, it looked like Bobby was gone. Johnny fell to one knee in the sky, chest heaving, flames sputtering. His body glowed like molten metal, and his skin was ash gray beneath the flame. "I warned you," he coughed. "Don't push me." But then it began to snow. Tiny flakes, then sleet, then a spiraling cold front that blanketed the city in seconds. From the crater, mist coalesced. Vapor danced into shape. A face emerged, then shoulders, arms, and finally a towering figure of pure, crystalline frost. Bobby Drake was still alive. Barely. "Funny," he said, his voice echoing like a haunted glacier. "I was about to say the same to you." Johnny stood, but his flames had dimmed. His Nova blast had drained him nearly dry. His fire trembled, flickering. Bobby raised both hands, drawing moisture from every rooftop, hydrant, and cloud above. A spiraling cyclone of water surrounded him, instantly frozen into 1,000 shards of crystal. Then, with a final breath, he unleashed it. The Winter Lance. A piercing spear of pressurized ice slammed into Johnny's chest, locking him mid-air in a cocoon of frost. It didn't kill him, but it extinguished him. Frozen solid, Johnny Storm hovered in the air like a firefly in amber, eyes wide, flickering dimly as frost crept across his lashes. The flames went out. The battle was over. Bobby collapsed to one knee, his body steaming as heat finally began to fade from the battlefield. He looked up at the frozen form of his old friend, guilt washing over his exhaustion. "This wasn't about winning, Johnny," he whispered. "It was about survival." Paramedics and emergency responders moved in cautiously, but no one dared step close to either of them. Somewhere, in the watching distance, Cyclops exhaled. Reed Richards folded his arms solemnly. There was no cheering, no applause, only silence. The battle of fire and ice was over, and winter had won.